So Bungie decided to put out their own fire that they themselves made, and the community was like, "Hey, there's this fire going on in your backyard. You're time gating an event that shouldn't be heavily time gated because it's only 3 reprised dungeons, and they're really mostly the same as their original form. So why are we doing this?" And well, this is a good thing, and it's not enough in some forms either, but mostly it's just good to know that our feedback does matter. That's probably one of the more important things to take from this entire situation. And of course there are limits to this. There are things that are practical and not practical, and obviously a majority of the community has to agree on something. If you are completely unaware of this issue, I do recommend you go and watch my first video on this stuff, or just, I don't know, go look at the Destiny 2 team account replies. You'll get a good taste of what this whole situation entailed. But I mostly want to talk about the fix and, other things. But let's get into this long tweet by Destiny 2 team account on Twitter. So it reads as follows: "Starting today, our planned Rite of the Night dungeon calendar will be changing. Each dungeon will be featured for 2 weeks as opposed to 3. And we are increasing non-area manifold currency drop rates, which can be exchanged for additional weapons. With this change, Ghosts of the Deep will now launch next Tuesday, May 20th, followed by Prophecy on June 3rd. Alongside the above change, the second week of a given dungeon will also feature increased weapon drops, where rewards can drop from any enemy defeated during your dungeon playthrough. Hollow foils are included in this as well. For this week, we are rapidly working on an update that will turn on increased weapon drops in Spire of the Watcher until Ghosts of the Deep becomes the featured dungeon next week. We'll let you know when that's deployed. Starting on June 17th, all Rite of the Nine dungeons will be available to play at any time on any difficulty, and increased currency drops will be active for all 3 dungeons. Each week, a featured dungeon will have increased weapon drops. This will begin with Spire of the Watcher on June 17th, followed by Ghost of the Deep on June 24th, ending with Prophecy on July 8th. Or, that's July 1st, but below is on July 8th. A Lootapalooza will begin. All 3 dungeons will have all reward bonuses enabled for the final week of Episode Heresy, alongside a new way to spend your non-area manifold currency. We hope this gives all Guardians ample time to hunt for holofoils and adepts as they prepare for the Edge of Fate's launch on July 15th. So there's a couple things to get into here, and the first thing is it's nice to have the rate of which the dungeons drop for this event increased. We will have Ghosts of the Deep on the 20th now, which is this next reset, and then Prophecy 2 resets after that. So it's better than it was. It's not as good as it should be. And I know you're gonna say, well, you're just never pleased. What else could they have done? And well, it's already sullied. We've already gone past the point of no return for some people, and for others, it's just annoying to be treated this way once again. And it's not just the time gating. It is a blatant disrespect of your time, which is something Bungie has done on numerous occasions. A great example of this is a very old controversy that, of course, is probably the largest within the Destiny community, aside from the Destiny content vault, if you can call it that, and that's, of course, sunsetting. You spent so much time grinding out weapons just to eventually lose them because they become obsolete, and most people deleted these weapons, me being one of those, and I'm sure many people watching this or people who've probably left the community because of that issue. And of course they ended up letting you use those weapons again, because what's the point? Power creep exists. Most of those weapons aren't good anymore. Just, let the players use it for shits and gigs. And that worked out in the end, but when it was happening, it was horrible. It was totally a slap in the face to player investment, and this is another slap in the face to the very same thing. And not because it's time gated in general, but just because we were told initially it's going to be one dungeon each week, it's going to rotate, or it's going to be a rolling cadence of these dungeons coming out, one a week, and there was no clear and transparent communication on this in any way, shape, or form. And that is what is the most irritating. Typically when you have an event, no matter if it's before an expansion, after, during, they will communicate the dates on which things are happening and be crystal clear on everything. And I don't know if it was a mistake or whatever. They haven't really said, because again, communication is a huge part of this. But all we can do is assume that it was intentional. And that is where the discourse stems from, is intentionally misleading your community. So instead of hopping on for the new dungeon on the second reset of the event, you're hopping on to do a quest to do the same dungeon again. And it's super irritating. It's like, you're supposed to dissect a dungeon that you've probably already played a bunch for 3 straight weeks. And sure, it's a little bit different, but it's not new in the initial sense. And I'm all for reprising stuff. I'm all for that. But just, again, the lie is the main thing I want to focus on in this video. It's what I focused on in the last one, is just, again, being disrespected in that sense. It turns off a lot of people. I've already seen some people commenting on my first video about this, that they're not even going to buy the expansion because of this controversy. And that is the biggest issue with any controversy within the community, whether it's blown out of proportion or not, and I don't think this was. It causes people on the outside looking in, or people who've just come back to the game or whatever, to look at it and say, man, even their own community, the hardcore players, the content creators, are not gushing about how fun this new activity is, but how horrible it is because it's time gated. And again, we were lied to. I think the real kicker too, as we get back to player investment, is that most of these weapons are going to become obsolete in July, because there's a new tier system coming in the Edge of Fate, and I think that's cool. But again, these old weapons, so to speak, will become obsolete, such as the weapons of old in Sunsetting have also become obsolete. So it's a very quick turnaround, right? You're not really going to be enjoying these weapons for as long as you think you might. I mean, maybe some of them will be meta, but I honestly don't think most of them will last after the Edge of Fate, because we'll have so many new things to mess around with, and the meta will change. And they also tweeted about Hierarchy of Needs is going to get updated, and some changes there. So that's an exotic already that's going to get changed, one that's exists in game. But definitely look out for getting that. I do think you get a chance to acquire it in a quest for this event, so that's cool. You're thinking about playing this event anyway. You're either gonna wait until the last couple of weeks and you can play catch up, but guess what? You're also gonna get the benefit of these increased drops, especially if you wait for the second week of Ghost of the Deep, or you just wait until July 8th to get them all done. And you get all those benefits, those extra drops, and essentially you're just waiting to play Destiny 2 even longer. So why not just have that Lootapalooza at the beginning, or maybe you do 1 week of the juiced up drops for these weapons at the beginning of the event, right? And then you do another at the end of the event, or somewhere in between the events beginning and end, and bookend that as well on both sides. And the reason you want to do this is just to build hype around the game. This system for the event has killed the momentum. And not only that, has made the community upset, as well as drive people away from potentially buying into Edge of Fate or Renegades. And on top of that, instead of the devs using this time to polish up Edge of Fate and Renegades and everything in between and beyond, they're now having to go back and increase the non-area manifold drops and set up the double drops for Lootapalooza, or the triple drops, or whatever the rate is going to be. And They could have done this from the beginning. It would have saved everyone time. It would save me and many other people from making videos on this stuff or tweeting or whatever on this stuff. As a whole, the community needs to know that your voice matters. Some people will come into the comments and be like, why are you still playing this game? You hate this game. You're just sitting here yapping and complaining about it. And it's not complaining, it is criticism. Bungie doesn't owe me personally anything. And they do owe the community everything. Because without the community, Destiny 2 would have been dead forever ago. So as a whole, they have to always listen to what we say, listen to our demands, so to speak, and when it's right to act on those demands, they should do that, and this is an example of that. Now, last year we did have a similar thing with Into the Light, which I do mention in the previous video. They were originally drip feeding all of the weapons. It was, I think, a weapon a week or something like that, and they changed it to 2 weapons a week, which is certainly better, but was still a little annoying. Again, the difference between Into the Light and Ride of the Nine is simply that you had so much more content in Into the Light. You had Onslaught, you had all these quests for Onslaught, all these rewards at Shaxx, entire armor sets for each class, and then on top of that you had Pantheon at the end of it to give you access to adept weapons, a really cool title, and just a really fun, challenging event that kind of wrapped up Into the Light in a nice little bow. And they also organized tournaments with creators for that event, which made it even more exciting to tune in each week and watch your favorite creator participate in that tournament. And it really wasn't a tournament, it was more like a race to see who could complete that week first, and whoever won the most weeks, I think, ended up getting a real-life falling guillotine replica, which was awesome. They should do more stuff like that, and I think they are doing something like that for Rite of the Nine, but again, not building into the hype of that and doing it each week and making an event out of it is really sad. I was tuning in to the Destiny directory as I do, and you can usually take the pulse of that on Twitch, and you get a good idea of how hyped the community is and what's going on. And it had, I think, 6,000, 7,000 viewers. Now, this was kind of late at night, like 8 or 9 EST maybe. But half of that was OnPam, and he was on the front page carrying about half of the Destiny directory's views. And OnPam's great, you should definitely go watch his stuff, he does great stuff. But it was just sad to see that on a reset day. And it was mostly because of this. And it doesn't help Bungie at all to practice this stuff. In the long run, it hurts them more than anyone else. And that's why I'm here talking about this, because I want the game to succeed. But with the way they treat the community sometimes, it doesn't deserve to succeed. So yeah, the initial audio for this was recorded a while ago. I've been busy with work, so of course, you know, not long after I was done recording the whole thing about the fix, quote-unquote fix, to Rite of the Nine, yeah, the whole marathon artist controversy popped up. And it's not really controversy, Bungie just straight up stole art from an artist. Once again, this is not a new thing for Bungie. They've done this multiple times. Most recently, a video I did forever ago that you probably didn't watch, but it doesn't matter because it was about the Nerf gun version of Ace of Spades, which was ripped off from a fan artist that had made the Ace of Spades to begin with. I know there are plenty of other instances, not only for Destiny, but other stuff in the past, and how does this keep happening? I don't know. They continue to say that it was some former employee that implemented this art and they had no clue about it, but how do you not have some sort of cross-reference system, whether it's through QA, which I know that's kind of funny because they've laid off a ton of QA staff, and if not that, some sort of legal team that is checking this stuff so that you make sure this doesn't happen. It's insane to me. And if you do, you catch it and you settle with the artist privately. Either you bring them on as a consultant for the game, not really a consultant, you just pay them for their work, which is what they should have done. Or if the artist wants to settle privately, that's their choice. But honestly, the way this is going and the way it should go is this artist will get what they're owed, and it all depends really on how Marathon does. And at this point, who even knows if Bungie will go through with releasing it at this point, which is such a shame because, let's say in theory, and just basing it off what Bungie has told us, if it's one person who took this art and just copy pasted per se, right? I know it's not as easy as that, but that's basically what has happened. But if that's true, it was just one person, then the entire team, from weapons design to lore and so on, is gonna pay for this, because all of their hard work has essentially just gone into thin air. It's potentially done with, and it really sucks too that all that manpower as a Destiny fan is potentially going to go to waste, and that not only sucks for Bungie, it probably sucks way more for the devs, and understandably so. But knowing those resources could have been put towards Destiny, whether it was Edge of Fate or Renegades, or even God forbid a Destiny 3, who knows, anything would have been nicer than what is happening now. And it sucks for everyone, right? Bungie as a company for sure is going to suffer, and some might say it's karma. I wouldn't completely disagree with that, but the devs certainly deserve to succeed, and Destiny's a good example. They've been pumping out content for years, keeping the game alive and giving fans at least a little bit of what they ask for when they can. Whereas, with Marathon, this could be something that was out of most of their control. But again, there are things you can do to prevent this sort of thing. And obviously, whatever Bungie has implemented to try and fix this issue from happening, again, hasn't worked. Because this is like the fourth plus time they've been caught plagiarizing someone else's art. And it's just such a bad look, because you can hire these people, you can commission their work, and you can do all sorts of things to avoid this. And it's similar to the Rite of the Nine controversy. They could have just not time-gated the event, or released it as they originally told us they were going to release it, or again come out in front and say, hey, listen, we messed up in this live stream, the event's actually coming out this way. And that way you avoid the entire controversy in the first place. It's not a controversy because you fix the issue before it happens. And this is the very same thing. So I think at this point that it's not anything but the leaders at Bungie. There's clearly something that's been going on at the company for decades at this point that makes it so dysfunctional. And the only answer I can think of is if current leadership is ousted, and whether it's Sony taking over or they promote from within or whatever, things need to change, because the formula that's in place doesn't work. And before you say every single dev there sucks, which I know there are people out there that think that's true, I'm gonna just tell you straight up, they have laid off so much of their workforce that how can it be them? They are, if anything, the reason that Destiny is still around. And you could feel the difference when the QA staff left. It went from, there are some bugs here and there, to literally entire events and missions that were even unrelated to updates, right? Just crashing in the game, or not being completable, or soft locking you. Like, you could tell the difference. It was night and day. And, you know, that's not the only issue with the game, but it was probably the largest thing that people noticed. And with the revolving door of devs that have come and gone at Bungie, most of them leaving, right? You can't say it's the devs. It's clearly the person driving the ship, because they continually hit rocks and icebergs. They just don't learn from their mistakes. And now Bungie, in this proverbial ship, has to patch up the holes, bail out the water. And clearly, it's not just a waste of time from a development standpoint, because you have to play damage control and you have to resolve these issues from a PR perspective, and it's just the right thing to do if you ask me. But you also have to move forward. You need to do Edge of Fate and Renegades, and you need to make sure those are successful. So it's a complete waste of time. It's something they could have prevented in the first place. And to me, it can only get worse from here. But sometimes, you know, it gets worse before it gets better. And maybe, just maybe, we will finally get the Justin Trumans of the world and the Pete Parsons of the world out of this company. And I know they're probably not the only issue as far as leaders at Bungie go, but they are the most relevant people that I can think of, at least with their mindsets, have caused multiple issues for the company. And it's not just, oh my goodness, Pete Parson owns luxury cars, because he does, right? He's filthy rich. But he's just a horrible person, right? There are devs who have stories about Parsons bragging about his cars, right? And this is where it comes from. And the devs were basically complaining that they could barely afford groceries. All the while, Parsons, again, was bragging about his vintage cars, which is ridiculous. So the type of person he is also isn't deserving of the position he has. I know there are people out there that think CEOs of a gaming company shouldn't care about their fan base. They should just think of you as a metric on a spreadsheet for their financials. And partially you're right in that regard. But if you put the players first, and of course the community in general, then everything else that you need as a company will follow. Money and good optics and PR from that perspective. But that's just something Bungie hasn't done in such a long time, and I hope that changes very soon. But I can't really say much of anything else. It's kind of beating a dead horse at this point. I, again, would just love to see changes at this company. I would love to see Destiny succeed as a game. It's really hard to support a company that just constantly makes it difficult to do so. And part of me is in this constant turmoil of, I hate the CEOs of Bungie, I hate the execs, I hate their attitudes towards making games in general, but I want to support the devs. The devs make cool shit that I enjoy all the time. And I don't want to leave Destiny 2 because I'm trying to build something in it. And I will admit, part of that is selfish. It's this channel. I've put so much time and energy into it, and I don't want to just see it be for nothing, if that makes sense. And I have friends that still play this game, and I enjoy playing it with them, and I do genuinely enjoy this game, right? There's nothing like it. A lot of people will say that, and you might just think they're saying that, but it's true. And I know there are a lot of people who have left Destiny, and, you know, for the most part, for the better. And that is definitely something down the line I am considering. Again, I just hope that finally we'll see the change that we've been hoping for, but again, it's unlikely. Anyways, see ya.